marketing for well over 17 years now, and one of the things that often comes up is people are worried about putting themselves out there because they're frightened about the criticism they might attract. And I hate to tell you this, but it doesn't go away. There's a saying that the further you climb up the ladder, the more your rear is hanging out. And so a couple of weeks ago, I actually posted something on my Facebook page, and it was a video where I think, if I don't mind saying so myself, I was sharing some pretty amazing content on how to be focused and productive. And there was a comment left on my Facebook page, and the comment was, why would I take advice from someone who is clearly overweight, must be overeating, and therefore not in control of their life? So it wasn't that easy to take that feedback, but it is feedback, and let's be honest, you know, I don't need the scales to let me know that I do need to lose some weight. So after I was reflecting on this, I thought, okay, I'm going to get some help here. And whether you're looking for help in business, health, life, whatever you're looking for help with, it is always important to get help from someone who's been there and done it. You want to get help from people who have achieved the results that you want to. And so there's someone very special in my life who has achieved these results, because here is my sister Tina Doyle. Hello. And I think, you know, we'll put a picture up when we do this of you. But Tina, over a period of 51 weeks, lost 8 stone, 1 pound, which is in pounds for the American audience.
113 pounds.
113 pounds. And not only did she lose that amount of weight, she's also kept it off for more than a year. So clearly she knows what she's talking about when it comes to this. So even if you think you don't need to listen to me, then, you know, she right here is the expert. And I thought, I want to get Tina in to give me some advice, but also anybody else who's interested in this topic. Yeah. And we're not going to specifically talk about dieting tips or specific diets, because I think by this stage we all know if you want to lose weight, you need to
eat less and move more.
All right, okay, so it's not rocket science, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the one question that I really want to talk to you about is not the specifics of how you did it, but how do you do that? How do you manage on a day-to-day basis to make sure that you are eating less and exercising more?
Well, when I started, I didn't even realise how much weight I would lose. I know in the past I've dieted and lost a couple of stone. I thought, okay, I feel quite good now, and then kind of given up and put more weight back on, which is, I think, really typical of a lot of people. And I know a lot of people say, oh, I've got a wedding to go to, I've got an event to go to, and they set themselves that goal, and then they get to that goal, and then they stop and give up, and then the weight goes back on again. So when I started, I knew I wanted to lose weight. I didn't know how much I wanted to lose. So I just carried on going until my body couldn't lose no more. And that's purely what I did. I had obviously events coming up on the horizon in that time scale. I didn't know it would only take a year. I had no idea. So I didn't realise that there was a specific process when I started. I just started, and this is a lifestyle change for me. It wasn't a diet to lose weight, it was a complete lifestyle change. And I didn't realise that when I was starting that it was going to be a lifestyle change either. So they talk about the journey. A journey to me is you get in a car, you go somewhere and you end somewhere and you get out of the car. And this isn't a journey, this is life, this is now my life. And I think that was another process that I went through, that when I was getting to the point where I'd lost a lot of weight and I was, my weight loss was slowing up, but I thought, wow, what am I going to do now? Because am I just going to go back to my old way? But I knew I had to, this was it, everything was changed for me now.
Wow. Well, I think is really interesting about that is normally with goal setting, people say the first thing, you've got to have a goal. Yeah. So, often people will set a weight loss target or a size or a figure on the scales that they want to see. And I think it's fascinating that you didn't have that. Yeah. And it seems to me that your focus has been much more on the process rather than the end result.
That's right, yeah. So it was, but when I started, I didn't realise that I was concentrating more on the process and the issues that I faced during that process as well. Obviously, throughout it, things are changing very quickly. Not only your body shape, your body size, but your mindset has changed completely. And the person I was when I started is definitely not the person I ended up with at the end. Not that I'm, a different person at all, but I am, a lot more confident in, I was always confident anyway, you know, I never had
Runs
issues.
in the family.
A no
We're not shy.
Diet, no. But I was so much more confident in it, and in a business sense as well, that I felt people weren't just looking at me as the size that I was, and I felt vulnerable being that size, that they were looking at me and hearing me much more than looking at me and going, okay, she's overweight, she's probably quite undisciplined. And I wasn't at all. I wasn't any of those things. I had a problem I needed to sort out in myself, and I came to the end of it.
I have heard you use language like rock bottom. I've also heard you describe yourself as a food addict. Can you say a bit more about that?
And I find it really surprising that people are quite shocked when I talk about it being an addiction, because genuinely that's what it was. And I think, well, people who don't understand that clearly have a healthy relationship with food, and I genuinely didn't. I remember being in a situation where I was changing my lifestyle, making changes in my lifestyle in terms of food, and there were days when I would struggle. I was literally, almost crawling at myself because I wanted food, and
you're like a junkie looking for a fix.
Like it was, and that's really what it was, and I realised that when I was feeling that way, it's like cold turkey. It really is. And I didn't realise how bad it was for me until I got to that point. And so you're learning all these things as you're going along. And to overcome situations like that, I would busy myself. I would clean in the oven, anything just to keep your mind off what was going on. And an hour would pass by. But literally, I would not live by the hour, but I was struggling. And I think you realise you're struggling, and there's a saying about something along the lines of unless you go through a struggle, there's no progress. And I think you have to go through that whole process to understand where you were to where you've come from. And they talk about focusing on looking ahead and everything, and absolutely you need to look ahead, but you need to look behind at where you've come from to understand where you are and where you're going to as well. And rock bottom, there was days when I felt it was hard, but I think the rock bottom for me personally was when I decided this is it, I've got to make that change. When that night, that day, this is tomorrow, I'm starting afresh, and that was my rock bottom. And when there's days when I was struggling, that's not your rock bottom. Your rock bottom will have been that day when you decided to make that start. We climb, we fall. That's life, and we go through life that way. And I think the day when you hit rock bottom again will be the day when you give up. And I just knew I wasn't going to give up. I was going to conquer this. And
all right, I've got to get some questions in because I want to ask so many questions about what you just said, because first of all I find it so extraordinary when you describe you're almost like clawing at yourself, like in the grip of an addiction. And you weren't at the Priory, you weren't in rehab or anything like that, but it really does. I mean, you were basically on your own, essentially, overcoming an addiction. And so even as you described, like hour by hour, the things that you did to make sure you stuck with it. But the question that begs to me is like, how do you find that inner strength? Yes,
the inner strength for me. I mean, I've got a rock at home, and he is my life, and we were at home together, and he probably didn't even realise what I was going through, but just the knowledge of having him there.
Yeah.
And then I had a fantastic network of support and people that I'd met, not even physically met, but just through message boards, and who I would have that help through them. And then friends who knew that I was wanting to change my life and who were supporting me as well and who wanted to help me. So that's what I realised. I needed to surround myself with a fantastic network. Absolutely, this had to come from me. I could sit and walk up and down the street and say to people, "You're overweight, I can help you." They're going to laugh in my face. But unless you really, really want to change, it has to come from you. The start has to come from within, and then you can make the change yourself.
Can you say a bit about reaching that point, of getting to that point of really, really, really wanting to make the change?
Well, there wasn't one eureka moment. I think I've talked about this before. There wasn't one thing that happened. There was lots of little things that happened. One of the last things that happened was I got into a car parking space. I squeezed out the car door. I scratched the car, and I thought, oh, this is ridiculous. This is now going to cost me hundreds of pounds to fix my car door, just because of the fact that you're overweight. You need to do something about it. But there was lots of things that, lots of little situations. But that was probably the last thing, and I thought, no, this is it. And I got to the end of the year, and I thought, you know, I remember driving home every Christmas Eve from work, my last day of work, thinking, you've gone through another year and you're still overweight. And I thought, no, I'm going to change now. I'm going to make a change. And I can't even capture that specific moment, because I talk to other people who are losing weight and I say, tell me that specific moment that it was, because I want to capture that, because you've got to anchor that and reach back for it.
Yeah.
When you are feeling difficult, and but that's the only thing I can say, is that when you are struggling, you look back and you think, well, why did you start? And when you have lost, you know, £1, £10, £100, whatever it is you've lost, you know, you've come so far.
Yeah.
Don't give up. You just can't give up.
So it's interesting you were talking about that moment of making the change, but the other thing that you just said about how you kept going, it seems to me there wasn't one moment of making a change. It was that the change really happened in those moments when you wanted to reach for this biscuit tin and yet you stopped yourself from reaching.
I would stop myself. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think it's the realisation that you're doing quite a lot of things out of habit without even realising you're doing it. You've got to stop and think about everything you're doing and be so much more mindful about eating and what you're doing and the habits you're in. And they talk about eating slowly and all those kind of things, but it's really what you're eating rather and really stopping yourself reaching for something that you know is going to pull you back again, you know, that's going to trigger your addiction again.
You said something to me earlier about your hardest day isn't your worst day.
Yeah, your worst day is, you know, when you're feeling it's hard, and it is hard. You know, there was moments where I did think, I just can't do this. I need to throw the towel in. That wasn't my worst day. Your worst day will be the day you give up. And I realised that I'd hit my rock bottom when I decided to start, and I struggled. And like I said earlier, without any, you know, you have to go through the struggle to get the progress, to understand. But you know, your worst day will just be the day when you think, I can't do this anymore, and give up.
I love that way of thinking about it, which is no matter, and this applies not just to health and weight loss, but to anything in life, that if you're having a challenge, that however difficult it is, that it's never as bad as it's going to be until you go, all right, I'm giving in.
Yeah, isn't there a saying that the prophets say they'll never give you something that you can't physically handle?
Yeah.
There's
if God brings you to it, He'll bring you through it.
There's a saying that, and you think that, you know, as bad as it is, it's actually, you're at the end. That point where it's like, I can't do this anymore. You're at the end of that struggle, and everything else is just easy after that. It really is.
So the other thing that I've noticed as we've talked about this privately is that you've said that there's no ending. You know, it's not like you got to a certain weight and you were done. And I draw parallels in business. You know, I remember I had a milestone a few years ago where I wanted to reach $1 million in business, and I got to that. But it's not like I went, oh, well, I'm done now. You know, I'll go and do something else. Obviously, in business, there's always new challenges and new opportunities and new things coming along. And you've said that there's no ending to this journey.
No, there's not. And I know people do talk about dieting or losing weight as being a journey, and to me a journey, as I've said earlier, it was like you don't get in a car, you go somewhere and then you get out of the car and then you go home. That isn't what this is. This is a lifestyle change for me to you know, I have had to learn so many new things as well, so it's a whole learning process as well. So it wasn't like, you know, you start, you finish, you end. It's not a race, it's not a marathon, it's not a sprint, it's not you cross the finish line, whoopee-doo, have a celebration, and then you kind of go off and do your own thing again. This is now my life. This is it.
Right, so one final piece of advice to the person who's watching this, really resonating more with what you're saying, resonating with your story, and they're actually now saying to themselves, right, I'm ready to make this change. What's your advice to them?
What's the killer question? What's the secret of the success?
Well, what's your advice to them? Like, you know, there's someone watching this right now that's like, that's me. I'm ready. I'm going to do this.
I can only tell you how I managed this. I wanted it so badly, Bernie. I really, and that was my driver. I didn't want to go back to those situations where, you know, on the outside, I might have looked happy. I was unhappy inside, and I really just didn't want to go back to that situation again. I didn't know what the outcome would be for me in all of this. Obviously, I'm delighted. I'm absolutely thrilled with what I've achieved. But you've got to really, really have the desire. It's desire, and it's motivation, and it's willpower. And really, those three things are the key to it. And you can adopt that in a business sense, I think, as well. So in anything you do in life, surely that's desire, motivation, and willpower is your key.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tina. So that was this week's episode of Bernadette TV, and we would love it if you would come and share with us on the blog how this has impacted with you. And I'm going to put you on the spot now, but if people will come and ask questions on the blog, would you be willing to post some replies to them?
More than happy to, yeah. Definitely.
That'd be fantastic.
No problem.
And if you want more like this, this is the first time I've ever talked about weight loss on Bernadette TV. Normally we're more on business topics, but hey, it's the best you can be in your business and your life. So there is a button right over Tina's head, hovering like a little crown, saying subscribe. And if you hit subscribe, the good old people at YouTube will make sure that you don't miss a single episode. So thanks so much for being here with us today, giving us the opportunity to share this with you. And we shall see you on the next episode of Bernadette TV. Bye! Sisters, sisters, never were there such devoted sisters. Never had a chaperone, oh no sir, I'm here to keep
Aoife has been on yo-yo diets her entire life, losing and gaining weight. She was obsessed with scales, but didn't know that scales don't measure sexy and healthy. Browsing the internet for weight loss tips at the American Heart Association website, she discovered the body composition test. What is body composition, and why is it important? Your body is made up of water, fat, protein, carbohydrates, and various vitamins and minerals. If you have too much fat, especially around your waist, you're at a higher risk for such health problems as high blood pressure, diabetes, and high blood cholesterol. These can increase your risk of strokes and heart attacks. At the BeFitClub.ie Weight Loss Challenge Support Group, we are focused on the fat around the middle. Aoife reached her ideal body shape using the latest technology such as a weekly computerized body composition test, which lets us know how sexy and healthy our body shape is becoming, as many others. At BeFitClub.ie, slimming down with soul and sweetness. Book your spot at www.befitclub.ie or call or text Cindy at 086 331 5519 or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Dublin Shape Up.